Let me ask you something. Most people never dare to confront something so uncomfortable that your mind will try to distract you, even as I. Asking it, are you actually living, or are you just enduring life until the next chance to escape it? Be brutally honest with yourself right now. Do you wake up on Monday already counting the hours until Friday? Do you fantasize about your next vacation while scrolling numbly through social media during your lunch break? Do you need alcohol, endless Netflix episodes, or a weekend of distractions just to tolerate the weight of your daily existence? If your strategy for life is to survive 5 days just to feel alive for 2, if you live in constant anticipation of temporary relief, then I need to tell you something that might hurt. You're not living. You're surviving, and worse than that, you're escaping. But escaping from what? Maybe it's the job that drains your soul, that sucks the life out of you 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Maybe it's the obligations you never questioned, the responsibilities you took on because everyone else expected you to. Maybe it's the lifestyle you've built based on what others told you success should look like, the house that's too big, the car payment that's too high, the image you're maintaining that doesn't even feel like you. You chase promotions you don't really want. You buy things you don't actually need. You attend social gatherings out of sheer obligation. And you tell yourself this is normal, that this is just adulthood, that everyone feels this way. But what if I told you that's a lie? What if I told you that this constant need to escape is not normal, it's not inevitable, and it's definitely not something you just have to accept? Henry David Thoreau, writing over 150 years ago, said something that cuts right to the heart of this. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And it's still true today, maybe more true now than ever before. The desperation is no longer loud or obvious. It's silent, it's polished. It's hidden behind curated Instagram stories, behind workaholism disguised as ambition, behind weekend plans and the endless need to treat yourself. You built a life that requires constant escape because it was never built to nourish you in the first place. It was built to impress others, to conform to expectations, to maintain an identity that was handed down to you by society, by your parents, by your culture, but was never truly yours. Thoreau didn't say you need better vacations. He didn't say you need more dopamine hits, more followers, a better job title, or another self-help book. What he discovered, living deliberately by Walden Pond, was something much more radical and something absolutely terrifying for anyone trapped in the illusion of modern success. You don't need better escapes. You need a better life. And no, that doesn't mean running off into the woods to live in a cabin, although that's exactly what Thoreau did for a time. It means waking up. It means rebuilding your existence from the ground up, not based on what's expected of you, not based on what looks good to others, but based on who you really are beneath all the masks and roles and performances. This message isn't here to give you productivity hacks. It's not about optimizing your 9 to 5 or finding the best meditation app to cope with your stress. This is about something far more fundamental. This is about burning the blueprint you were handed and designing your life deliberately with intention, with courage, and with brutal honesty. Because once you build a life that's actually aligned with your true self, you no longer need to escape from it. You actually want to be in it. So before we move forward, I'll ask you again, and I want you to really sit with this question. Are you living a life that sustains you, or a life that you have to constantly escape just to survive? If you're ready to face the truth and do something about it, stay with me. This won't be easy. It's going to challenge everything you've been taught about success, about responsibility, about what it means to live well. But it might just save your life. Part 1. The Cage of Success. How you got trapped. We'd been sold a dream. A carefully constructed fantasy packaged and marketed as success, as the good life, as what you're supposed to want. From the moment we enter this world, the script is handed to us. and most of us never question it. We just follow along, checking boxes, hitting milestones, believing that if we do everything we're supposed to do, happiness will somehow follow. The script goes like this: go to school, get good grades, land a respectable job, buy a house, get married, raise children, work hard for decades. And then, finally, when you're 65 or 70, maybe, just maybe, you'll have time to actually live. That's the myth. That's the cage. And most people never see the bars. They chase the milestones like they're ticking boxes on some cosmic checklist, believing that completion equals fulfillment. But what happens when you reach the end of that checklist and still feel hollow inside? What happens when you've got the career, the car, the home, the accolades, and yet every Sunday night still feels like a slow-motion panic attack? What happens when the life you worked so hard to build still requires constant escape? Thoreau saw this over a century ago, and he called it out with brutal clarity. He wrote, "Most men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them." Think about that for a moment. Really let it sink in. A life so consumed by duty, by routine, by unexamined ambition that the soul never gets a chance to sing its unique song. That's not success. That's spiritual suffocation. Society tells you that success is external. It's about acquisition, about what you own, how you appear, the image you project to the world, the status you achieve. But real fulfillment, genuine satisfaction, isn't found in accumulation. It's found in alignment, in living according to your deepest values, your authentic desires, your true nature. And here's the tragic irony. The more you chase what society calls success, the more disconnected you often become from yourself. The more you accumulate, the more empty you feel. The higher you climb the ladder, the more you realize you're climbing the wrong wall. How many people do you know who have the perfect life on paper, great job, nice house, respectable marriage, yet are exhausted, anxious, secretly miserable, and addicted to distractions just to make it through the week? How many high achievers have you heard quietly admit, "I thought having all this would make me happy, but it didn't"? You've been conditioned to believe that life is a ladder you must climb. But here's what no one tells you. Nobody knows what's actually at the top. You sacrifice your health, your joy, your creativity, your relationships, your peace of mind, all to reach a destination that might not even exist. And worst of all, when the emptiness sets in, when the hollow feeling go away, no matter how much you achieve, you blame yourself. You think you're broken because you're not happy with what others told you should fulfill you. But you're not broken. The model is broken. You were never meant to live by someone else's definition of success. You were never designed to fit into a one-size-fits-all script written by people who don't know you, who don't care about your unique gifts, your deepest longings, your soul's true calling. The reason you feel like escaping all the time isn't because you're lazy, ungrateful, or weak. It's because you've been chasing a life that doesn't fit you. You're living a story that was written for someone else. So the real question becomes, what is it that you actually want? Not what your parents wanted for you, not what your friends admire, not what society celebrates or your culture expects, but what ignites something real inside you, what makes you feel alive. What would you do if you knew no one was watching, if you didn't have to prove anything to anyone? Because until you start living according to your own truth rather than inherited expectations, you'll always feel the need to escape. And that brings us to the next uncomfortable layer of truth. The reason the urge to escape feels so constant, so unrelenting, is because the very foundation of your life was never truly yours to begin with. Part 2. The symptom you've been ignoring. Let's get brutally honest for a moment. If you constantly find yourself reaching for distractions, scrolling mindlessly through your phone, binge-watching shows you don't even enjoy, drinking more than you should, overworking to avoid your thoughts, fantasizing about the weekend or your next vacation. Not just relaxing. You're running. You're trying to numb yourself from something deeper, something you don't want to face. And here's the truth that most people can't stomach, the truth that will make you uncomfortable. The need to constantly escape is not a personal flaw. It's not a weakness in your character. It's a symptom of a life that was never truly chosen, only inherited. Thoreau said something that should shake you to your core. The cost of a thing is the amount of what I will call life, which is required to be exchanged for it. Read that again slowly. The cost of a thing is the amount of your life required to be exchanged for it. Most people are paying with their lives, their precious, finite, irreplaceable lives, for things they don't even want. They've built entire identities around expectations they never questioned, careers that don't inspire them, relationships that drain them, obligations that suffocate them. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted, anxious, and desperate for relief. So let's look at why this happens. Why does your day-to-day existence feel like a prison you need to escape from? Reason number 1, you accepted a prefabricated life. Most people are living what I call a second-hand existence. They never pause long enough to ask themselves, do I actually want this? Is this really mine? Instead, they adopted the standard blueprint without question. Go to college. Get a job. Climb the corporate ladder. Settle down. Buy a house. Have kids. Retire. Die. But that blueprint was never designed with you in mind. It was designed to produce obedient workers, predictable citizens, compliant consumers, not fulfilled human beings living according to their deepest truth. And because you never questioned the design, you ended up trapped in a life that doesn't fit your soul. It's like wearing shoes that are 2 sizes too small and wondering why your feet hurt. Reason number 2, you've confused means with ends. You work to make money. You make money to buy things. You buy things to feel comfortable, to feel successful, to maybe one day live the life you actually want. But that one day never comes. You're stuck in an endless loop. Work to maintain the life that requires you to keep working. You're using the best years of your life, your energy, your health, your time as a means to an end that keeps moving further and further away. That's not strategy. That's not planning for the future. That's slow death. Thoreau saw it clearly. We build our lives as tools for a future that never arrives. We're always preparing to live, but never actually living. You are paying for your life with your life, and you're not getting a good exchange rate. Reason number 3, you've overcomplicated your existence. Every new possession, every new commitment, every new necessity you add to your life increases complexity. You convince yourself you need the bigger house, the newest phone, the upgraded car, the designer clothes, the impressive lifestyle. But with each upgrade, the cost increases. Not just in money, but in freedom. You work longer hours to pay for the lifestyle that chains you to the very job you hate. You take on debt that forces you to stay in situations you want to leave. You maintain possessions that require your constant attention and energy. That's not progress. That's just a more expensive cage. Reason number 4, you're starving for primary experiences. Your life has become mediated. Everything is filtered through screens, through brands, through algorithms, through other people's curated versions of reality. When was the last time you felt dirt under your feet and actually paid attention to it? When did you last hear real silence? Not silence with a podcast playing, but actual silence where you could hear your own thoughts. When did you last create something with your hands just for the sake of creating? Not for productivity or profit or posting on social media? Thoreau lived by Walden Pond not to escape life, but to return to it. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, he wrote, to front only the essential facts of life. The modern world has severed you from those essential facts, from direct contact with reality. And now you're trying to compensate with dopamine hits and digital distractions, wondering why you still feel empty. So let's be absolutely clear about something. You don't need more motivation. You don't need better productivity habits. You don't need another self-help book to convince you to keep pushing through a system that's slowly killing you from the inside out. What you need is to wake up. You keep trying to escape your life because deep down in a place you probably don't want to look, you know something is profoundly wrong. You were never meant to live like this. Your soul is screaming at you through your constant need for distraction. But if the escape is just a signal, just a symptom pointing to a deeper problem, then maybe the solution isn't finding better ways to escape. Maybe the solution is a total reconstruction of your life from the ground up. And every reconstruction begins the same way, by stripping things down to their essence, by removing the excess, by simplifying. Part 3. The liberation of radical simplification. Most people think the solution to their stress is addition. Add a new habit, add a better planner, add another course on productivity. Add meditation, a side hustle, a new supplement, a new strategy to optimize their overwhelm. But what if the real solution isn't addition? What if it's subtraction? Thoreau understood something that most of modern society refuses to accept. Complexity is a trap. Every layer of complexity you add to your life, every unnecessary obligation, every new subscription service, every commitment rooted in fear or image management tightens the noose around your neck. You don't feel tired because you're weak. You feel tired because your life is bloated with things that don't belong to you, that were never yours to carry. His advice was simple, almost childlike in its clarity. Our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify. Let's talk about what that actually means, because this isn't about minimalism as an aesthetic. This isn't about white walls and Instagram-friendly decluttering for the perfect photo. This is about radical honesty. This is about looking at every single part of your life and asking one brutal question: does this give me life, or does it take life from me? Start with your obligations, your job, your house, your schedule, your overflowing inbox, your social life, your commitments. For each one, ask yourself, if I remove this, what would I actually lose? Am I keeping this out of genuine desire, or out of fear, guilt, or social expectation? What would I do with the energy I'd get back if this was gone? Imagine reducing your housing costs by living in a smaller space, not because you're settling or failing, but because you're liberating your time and attention from maintaining something you don't even need. Imagine canceling 80% of your social commitments and only saying yes to the 20% that actually nourish your soul, that leave you feeling energized rather than drained. Imagine eliminating every digital service, every subscription, every app you don't actively use, and watching your mental clutter vanish along with it. Because here's the hidden truth that no one talks about. Every single thing you own, manage, or maintain is a silent contract. It demands your time, your energy, your attention, your money. And most of those contracts were signed unconsciously. You never actually agreed to them. You just inherited them, absorbed them, took them on because everyone else had them. Now you're drowning in the fine print of a life you didn't even choose. Simplicity isn't just about having less stuff. It's about creating space for more of what actually matters: peace, depth, clarity, presence, connection, meaning. When you simplify, you no longer live under the tyranny of maintaining a lifestyle that doesn't reflect your values. You no longer have to work extra hours just to sustain things that don't matter. You stop building a life around compensation, trying to compensate for the emptiness with more stuff, more experiences, more distractions. Instead, you start building your life around intention. And suddenly, a strange thing happens. The urge to escape begins to disappear. Because when your life is no longer filled with things that weigh you down, when you're no longer suffocating under obligations that don't align with who you are, you stop fantasizing about breaks and vacations and retirement. You are no longer desperate for distractions because your everyday life isn't suffocating you anymore. You wake up and there's air in your lungs. You move through the day with space around your thoughts. You don't feel like you're being pulled in 100 different directions by 100 different demands. You're actually here, fully, finally, present in your own life. But simplifying alone isn't enough. Once you've stripped away the excess, once you've cleared the clutter, you're left with a new question, maybe the most important question of all. What do I do with the life I've reclaimed? That brings us to the next step. Because now that you've created space, it's time to rebuild. But this time, we do it right. This time, we build around your truth, not someone else's expectations. Part 4. What are you trading your life for? Here's the uncomfortable truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You are selling the most precious currency you have. Your life energy. Your finite time on this earth for things you don't even believe in. You wake up. You drag yourself out of bed. You sit in traffic or log on to Zoom with dead eyes. And then you spend 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours doing something that feels fundamentally meaningless to your soul. And for what? A paycheck? A status title? A sense of security that never really arrives? Let's be completely honest with each other. If your job requires you to deaden your soul 5 days a week just so you can feel alive for 2 days on the weekend, then what you're doing isn't work. It's spiritual attrition. It's the slow erosion of who you are. And the longer you do it, the more of yourself you lose. The more disconnected you become from your own essence, your own truth, your own deepest values. Thoreau didn't say, "Don't work." He wasn't romanticizing laziness or promoting some fantasy of lying around doing nothing. He was asking a much deeper, much more important question. What is worth trading your life for? And make no mistake, that's exactly what work is. It's a trade. Every hour you work is an hour of your finite, irreplaceable life. Once it's spent, it never comes back. You can make more money, but you can never make more time. Most people never calculate the true cost of their lifestyle. They only look at the price tags on objects, how much the car costs, how much the house costs, how much the vacation costs. But they never look at the price tag on their time, on their life energy, on their soul. So let's do it differently. Let's look at life as the ultimate currency. Ask yourself right now, how many hours of your life do you sell each month just to sustain the lifestyle you've built? Not to thrive, not to grow, not to pursue your dreams, just to stay afloat. You earn a salary, but subtract the hours spent commuting, sitting in traffic, preparing for work. Subtract the time spent decompressing from stress, the hours spent recovering emotionally from a job that drains you. Subtract the time you lose distracting yourself just to tolerate it, all the scrolling, the drinking, the numbing. What's left? What is your actual hourly life rate? And once you know that number, once you've calculated what your time is actually costing you, look around at your life. Every item you buy, every luxury you indulge in, every status symbol you maintain, ask yourself, how many hours of my life did this cost me? Was it worth it? That's how Thoreau lived. He worked only as much as he needed to sustain his modest needs. He calculated that he could meet all his basic requirements by working 6 weeks out of the year. And with the rest of his time, the vast majority of his life, he observed. He wrote, he walked through the woods, he thought deeply, he lived deliberately, he existed fully. His wealth wasn't measured in money. It was measured in unclaimed time, in freedom, in presence. in the ability to live according to his own rhythm rather than the demands of an economic system. Now ask yourself this question and really sit with it. What would your life look like if you structured your work around your values instead of your fears? What would you do if you didn't have to prove anything to anyone? If you didn't have to maintain an image or meet expectations that were never yours to begin with? Would you still be in the same job? Would you work the same hours? Would you even stay in the same industry? If your job is draining you, if it's killing your spirit day by day, it's not just about switching careers or finding a better company. It's about shifting your entire orientation to work. You don't need to leap into some fantasy vocation where every day is perfect. But you do need to start recalibrating. What kind of work feels honest to you? What kind of work doesn't make you feel like you're shrinking inside, like you're betraying yourself with every task you complete? What would you need to live with less so that you could work with more integrity? The lie you've been told, the lie that keeps you trapped, is that you must suffer now to someday enjoy life. That you have to pay your dues, sacrifice your present, grind through years of misery, all for some imagined freedom that will come later. But that someday often never comes. Most people work for decades chasing an imagined freedom they never reach. And even if they do reach retirement, by the time they get there, they've forgotten how to live. They've spent so long in survival mode that they don't know how to actually enjoy the freedom they finally have. So let's change the question entirely. Don't ask, how much can I earn? Ask, how much do I actually need to live well? Don't ask, what job will give me the most money or status? Ask, what work is worth my life? And when you align your work with your values, when you start making decisions based on what feels true rather than what looks impressive, everything shifts. You're no longer escaping from your life. You're no longer counting down the days until the weekend or fantasizing about retirement. You're pouring your energy into something that feels meaningful, something that resonates with who you actually are. And that changes everything. But work is only one piece of the puzzle. It's a major piece, yes, it takes up most of your waking hours. But it's not the whole picture. Because once you reclaim your time and align your efforts with your values, the next step is to fill that reclaimed space with something nourishing, something real, something deeply human. And that's what we need to talk about next. Part 5. Reconnecting with what makes you human. So you've simplified. You've questioned the script. You've started aligning your work with what actually matters to you. But now what? This is where most people get lost. They remove the noise and are left with silence. And silence, for those unaccustomed to it, can be absolutely terrifying. Why? Because we've forgotten how to simply be, not perform, not produce, not optimize, not distract ourselves. Just be human. You see, one of the greatest tragedies of modern life is that we've become strangers to the very experiences that once defined our humanity. We've replaced reality with simulation, connection with convenience, creation with consumption, presence with performance. Thoreau didn't retreat to the woods because he hated people or wanted to live like a hermit forever. He went because he understood that life, real, authentic, vibrant life, was being lost in the chaos of society. He craved what he called essential facts. The raw, unmediated experiences that nourish the human spirit at its core. And if you're honest with yourself, you felt this loss too. You scroll through photos of nature instead of actually walking through the forest. You text instead of having real, face-to-face conversations. You buy food wrapped in plastic, processed beyond recognition, microwaved and consumed in minutes. Instead of cooking a simple meal with your own hands, you spend more time watching other people live on screens than you spend actually living yourself. And then you wonder why you feel numb. Why you feel like something essential is missing. Why no amount of consumption or entertainment or digital stimulation fills the void. Because it is missing. What you're missing is realness. Contact with actual reality. Earth under your feet, movement of your body, silence that isn't filled with podcasts or music. Creation with your hands. Slowness. Deep attention. Presence. These are not luxuries. They are biological and psychological necessities. When you're denied these primary experiences, when your life becomes completely mediated through screens and apps and services, the human psyche begins to erode. Slowly, silently, often without your conscious awareness. So, how do you reclaim them? Start small, but do it deliberately. Every single day, carve out time for one unmediated experience. Step outside. No podcast in your ears. No phone in your hand. Just observe. Let your senses reawaken. Smell the air. Watch the way light moves across the ground. Notice the temperature on your skin. Let boredom surface and pass without immediately filling it with stimulation. This isn't some spiritual exercise. This is a biological reset. You're reconnecting with the sensory reality that your nervous system was designed for. Create something with your hands. Anything. Cook a real meal from actual ingredients. Plant something and watch it grow. Fix something that's broken. Write with pen on paper. Draw. Paint. Build something. Your brain is wired for creation, not just passive consumption. Every act of creation, no matter how small, reestablishes your agency in the world. It reminds you that you are not just a passive observer or consumer. You are a participant. You are a creator. And then, most importantly, get comfortable with silence. Not silence as in the absence of sound, but silence as in the absence of distraction. The absence of constant input and stimulation. Let your own thoughts rise without panic. Let your internal world speak again. You buried it under years and years of noise, and it's dying to be heard. You'll be amazed at how quickly the compulsive need for digital escape starts to fade once you do this consistently. You'll realize that the anxiety you felt wasn't random or chemical. It was withdrawal. Withdrawal from real life, from primary experiences, from actual presence. You weren't overstimulated because of too much information. You were starving for depth. You were malnourished on a diet of shallow, mediated experiences. And when you finally start feeding that hunger with real, direct, unfiltered contact with life, your nervous system remembers. Your spirit remembers. Your soul starts to come back online. Reconnecting with the basics of being human isn't regression. It's not going backward. It's revolution. It's reclaiming what was stolen from you by a culture that profits from your distraction and disconnection. But there's still one final trap that most people fall into. Even after simplifying their lives, even after reconnecting with what matters, even after all this work, it's the most powerful and invisible force keeping you trapped in a life you don't want, the pressure to conform, the fear of what others will think. And that's exactly what we need to confront next. Part 6. The courage to live your own life. Let's stop pretending. You can do everything right. You can simplify your life. You can reconnect with nature and primary experiences. You can align your work with your values. And you can still feel an invisible pressure weighing on your chest. That pressure? It's not coming from your job. It's not coming from your schedule or even your responsibilities. It's coming from them, from other people, from the silent expectations that have been etched into your psyche since childhood. Be normal. Be productive. Be responsible. Be impressive. Don't stray too far from the path. Don't question too loudly. Don't live too differently. And whatever you do, don't make anyone uncomfortable with your choices. This is the final chain. the one most people never break. You were trained, like all of us, to seek approval, to measure your worth through the eyes of your family, your peers, your culture. Even when you know a certain path is killing your spirit, you hesitate to leave it. Not because you're weak, but because you've been conditioned to equate acceptance with safety. And the thought of being judged, rejected, or misunderstood feels like a threat to your very survival. But here's what Thoreau knew, what he discovered in his deliberate experiment with life. Conformity is the most dangerous prison because it disguises itself as belonging. He said, "If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away." The question is, are you brave enough to step to your own music even when no one else hears it? To live deliberately means to reject automatic living. It means to question every should you inherited, every social norm that never asked for your consent, every expectation that was placed on you before you were old enough to choose. It means looking at the life you're expected to live and asking, who gave me this script? And why the hell am I still following it? Do you want the prestigious career, or do you just want your parents to be proud? Do you want the house, the car, the status symbols? Or are you just afraid of seeming like a failure in other people's eyes? Do you want the traditional path of marriage and family? Or are you just scared of being alone, of being different, of standing out? Here's the hard truth, the one that will separate those who genuinely transform from those who just talk about it. If you try to live a life that everyone approves of, you will never, ever live a life that feels true to you. You'll just be another ghost. Present in body but not in spirit. Alive on paper but dead inside. Living deliberately requires a kind of courage that most people never develop. It requires the courage to say, "No, I will not live a life of quiet desperation. No, I will not sacrifice my authenticity for applause. No, I will not escape into distractions just to tolerate a reality I didn't choose." And yes, people will judge you. You'll be called irresponsible, unrealistic, selfish, naive. You'll be criticized for not living up to expectations that were never yours to meet, but none of that matters. None of it, because they are not the ones who have to wake up inside your life every single day. You are. And if that life isn't yours, if it's just a performance, a role, a script someone else wrote, then no amount of approval, no amount of external validation will ever fill the void inside you. But when you finally stop asking for permission to live your own life, something profound shifts. You begin to feel grounded, clear, alive in a way you haven't felt since childhood. You stop needing to escape because your life no longer feels like a cage you're desperate to break free from. You've burned the old script, and you're writing your own. That's the freedom Thoreau discovered by Walden Pond. And it's not reserved for philosophers in the woods or people with special circumstances. It's available to anyone willing to stop running and start choosing. To anyone brave enough to disappoint others in order to be true to themselves. Conclusion: your turn to choose. So here we are, at the end of this journey of understanding. But really, this is just the beginning, because understanding without action is just entertainment. Knowledge without application is worthless. You now understand why you keep wanting to escape. You know that it's not a personal flaw, it's a symptom of a misaligned life. You understand that